8 minutes, Cody. Oh, yay.
Okay, we're here with some minor technical snafus.
Everything works. The audio.
As soon as I get there, I will let you know.
Yes.
I have intro audio. Yeah. Come on.
If the audio is fine,
Let you know. 5 seconds.
then party.
Come on.
You can have a party.
Jesus.
No?
Hang on. Yep, we're good. We're good. Let's go.
We're good. Oh my god. Okay. Finally, and the audio is fine, right?
Everything's good. Everything's good. No fires.
No fires. Okay, so another Trom Live. Let's start with another Trom Live. Do you feel hot? You know, when you when you go to the beach, is the water level high? Are you only seeing coral reefs in like aquariums? Do you see more people who don't speak your language in your own city? It could be climate change, you know.
No way.
People are migrating, maybe the sea levels are rising. Maybe it's not summer anymore, or it's not winter. We don't know anymore what it is. All of that. So we will discuss about climate change. And before we start to discuss about climate change, super quickly, I'll remind you that the way that this works is we take a topic, we discuss about this topic in length, and at the end we discuss some news from Trom Creator News, like tromsite.com/tools/news. Anyone can participate because it's an open discussion. You can find the links to participate at, I can even tell you now, it's like, you either go to tromsite.com/live where we post the link, or it's like, well, this is a bit complicated, but meet.git.si. Well, just go to tromsite.com/live and you'll see the link there. It's to meet the Jitsi Meet. It's open source application. So you can participate there. And or tromsite.com/chat to participate via the chat if you want. So if you are skeptical about climate change, I would love for you to participate. Because if not, I will try to be skeptical here about climate change. There's no one there to challenge these people. Scientism.
Or even if you're not skeptical, you can come and join.
Yeah. This Trom-Cast is basically, it's based on a blog that Sasha wrote, and she worked a lot on that blog. It's a really great blog about climate change and lots of sources. It took a lot of time. It's easy to understand, easy to read, and makes quite clear, you know, what climate change is, who creates this climate change, and what can we do about that. I know that the topic is discussed like so many times around, like everywhere. Everybody discusses climate change. Is the new cool thing now. Like, how are we going to die? And people are like, oh, climate change, you know, because they already know that. Even little kids, they know how they are going to die. So based on that, you probably find that link in the description of this video on Facebook or on YouTube. We also have show notes on tromsite.com/videos. So yeah, if we can start the cast. Hopefully,
yeah, and then also maybe we have Noel. Is it pronounced Noel? No. Yeah, let's see if his microphone. Does your microphone work?
It's your microphone.
So if you want to say anything,
He's typing it's no.
Yes.
Yeah, we got it.
You haven't been on Trom-Cast before. So.
And Noel, I think is going to be a good idea if you can post, if you want to participate via chat, you can go to tromsite.com/chat, because if you post on Jitsi chat, then it kind of messes up with our setup here for the video stream, because it's like the chat will pop up in Cody's or notifications, and it's a bit weird. It's more like the video or audio.
Yeah, I'll fetch him the link.
Yeah, and if your microphone works or your camera works, of course, you're welcome to say anything, anytime.
Okay, so
all good, brothers.
Because Sasha wrote that article and Cody feels it's too warm in Canada.
Oh man, dude, we got like a defrosted winter this year. I think just even the last week was like the worst of it, and there was nothing. It's already all gone. Yeah, some.
You don't have polar bears anymore?
The polar bears are migrating to the north. Yes, to the last remaining refuge.
Beluga whales.
Yeah, right.
All the ice melted, and they have to catch beluga whales.
Come on now, right? I mean, yeah. How are you gonna get your fatty acids? So yeah, that's it's pretty nuts down here, man. It's too warm. It's like we're waiting. We're like, okay, but when's winter coming? But it's February.
Yeah. My father texted me today, being like, in Moscow, he hasn't even taken out his winter jacket, and it's February, and spring is coming. So.
Well, maybe it's natural, guys. Maybe it's natural. You know, I'll try to be the skeptical.
It's the volcanoes. It's the volcanoes.
Yeah. Well, it's funny though, because whenever, my father sends me these kind of, text messages about, oh, it's so hot here, climate change must be real. I'm like, yes, father, climate change is real, but not because you notice that around you,
Right.
I like how, Theo likes to say, people are like, as if they're in the days of Aristotle now, making observations just by, what's around them. You don't have to use, your own observations of what's going on in your current city. Look at, what NASA is doing. Look at what NOAA is doing to observe the entire climate of the Earth, since it's a global system. We're using satellites, using a lot of, scientific data measurements, instead of just what you can observe in London, Canada, or London, or Moscow,
yeah, right.
or anywhere else.
Because based on that, let's start by asking this question: what is climate change first? Before we define that it's a problem. So, what do you think is climate change?
A shift from maybe the averages of past, jeez. Yeah.
What is climate?
Climate being the overarching weather pattern, so the general theme of the weather patterns over lengthy amounts of time, so like 5+ years, let's say.
But that's the difference between weather and, because people confuse them.
Weather is just, they're related, but not the same.
Climate is more like weather for like lots of thousands, maybe millions of years. Depends
a long period of time.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and weather can be any particular specific events.
Right.
Local, and So
climate, climate and change. So something is changing about the climate. What is it changing about the climate? Why is you said that maybe is not fair in a sense for our intellect to just observe what's happening outside. We need something more than that. So what's changing if I cannot rely on like looking outside and say, oh my God, it's too warm or it's too hot, if I cannot rely on that? So what is changing, first of all? What is changing, and how can we know that something is changing if we cannot rely on just pure observations there?
Pure data would fall under observations, so
how can we observe that something is changing in our climate? How can we observe that?
You'd need a benchmark of where it used to be somewhat, so that you had the comparison to draw it to the change, right? Okay, well, I mean, can't we dig up like stuff out of the ground and do the oh my goodness, I cannot think of the
You
word.
see the layers.
Yeah, right. You see the layers,
Mhm.
and you can see what was going down on planet Earth, kind of thing, so many years ago.
Mhm. Yeah, and they know because of layers. Basically, I think in ice cores, and also they
Right.
can measure through rocks and for even older measurements. But they know, well, they know that we haven't seen such high levels of CO2 in the air for at least 800,000 years, but probably millions.
Mhm.
But before we get to CO2, I guess maybe the question was really why is the climate changing?
Yeah, yeah. Or how? Like, how can we observe that?
How
That
does
was
this
the
work? Yeah.
not necessarily what causes it, but how can we observe that if something is indeed changing? And that's the idea here, because we can dig into the past. That's
Mhm.
really weird in a way, with our scientific understanding, to go back into the past, and we do so with fossils. For example, you find some dinosaur bones, like in rocks that are mountains now. Let's say you find them in the middle of that mountain. You know how much it takes for this kind of rock to form. You know what kind of processes it takes for this rock to form. So if that dinosaur bone is there inside it, I mean, it's unrealistic to think that someone fucking put it there. It's just not going to happen. So probably it was a process of millions of years, and you can calculate when those bones were engraved into that rock. So in the same way, we can take samples from the Earth. Basically, we can take for maybe hundreds of meters or kilometers. You take, for example, let's say dirt. You just dig into the Earth, and you see layers, because it takes time for these layers to form. And based on such cues, if you find some molecules inside some layers, if you find some plants, some biomass, some this and that, you can figure out, what happened in the past, not only in terms of climate, but in general, in terms of evolution and plants and biodiversity and so forth. So you, Sasha, you wrote there, like, what are we using? Like, what are the most important methods to dig into the past when it comes to climate change, for example?
Most important methods to dig into the past when it comes. Well, you mean like digging into ice cores and
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
We dig into ice. Why is ice that important, though?
Because it was water and then it froze and basically left the chemicals that were there when it was water will be present in that ice, so we can know how much, for example, how much CO2 is in that is in that ice, so it was in the water at a particular point of time.
Because parts of the atmosphere get trapped in that was snow and then ice. So there are these little bubbles. Basically, you can sniff the atmosphere that was thousands of years ago. So scientists take that, then sniff it. No, it's not sniffing it, but just they analyze that with sophisticated tools, and they can kind of understand what was in the atmosphere. And you might say, how the fuck can you know from a little tiny bubbles of air? Well, because they take lots and lots of samples, and they can analyze per, like, let's say, per centimeter or per millimeter of atmosphere, how much of these gases are, or how much of those. So it's not that complicated in that sense to analyze how the atmosphere was back in the days. So basically, that's what they discover, right? They discover that it's a change compared to the past. But what kind of the past? What kind of past we're talking about here?
I mean, as far as ice cores, like hundreds of thousands of years. Rocks, millions of years. Actual temperature measurements, a few hundred years, right?
So they also can measure temperature, right? Like, what temperature was thousands of years ago? Like,
well, I don't know. Can we know that?
well, that's what I'm asking. Do you think they can also know that? I would say that maybe if they analyze the rocks, the biodiversity, how much oxygen was in the air, how much CO2 and so forth, probably can deduce what kind of
Yeah. Because you can see, like, if you look at like geological time scale of the Earth, you can see that it was approximately this much hotter than it is today. A few million years ago, and then at this period, it was approximately that much hotter or colder. So
Yeah, so basically we observe change not from one. Probably what you also said very well there is that it's not just we don't take measurements from one part of the whatever the domain of science. Let's say ice. We also take from the ground. We also look at you correlate. And see if the all of the data matches, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's the idea here, that the climate is changing, and it's not because I don't have to use my winter coat now. It's because of these scientists that analyze all of this. And maybe if you, Sasha, if you want to go, so that I don't.
No, it's okay. I mean, the way I started explaining in my blog was, I just wanted to show that, okay, because it kind of annoys me when people still argue that climate change isn't real or whatever.
It's a hoax.
Because, like something like 98% of scientists agree that it is absolutely changing. It is because of us, and we know that for sure. So I started at like the blog explaining that, back in the 1800s, scientists, they were trying to figure out how does actually the Earth stay the temperature that it is, and so do you guys know actually, who can explain like the greenhouse effect, for example?
Cody.
Cody,
I know
Cody.
green things. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Imagine this cold, frosty winter and things, and you want to bundle up under these nice warm blankets or layers, if you will. Yeah, it's pretty effective at keeping heat in and reflecting and putting it back at the earth. So heat's coming in.
So where does where does heat come in from
that
onto the
giant
Earth?
ball of fire?
Exactly.
Some million things away, and that reaches us, and some of that's absorbed, some of that's reflected through like clouds and all that nonsense.
Ice.
Right, all these things. So the greenhouse effect being that your atmosphere on your planet of choice here, those chemical concoctions can basically create a more or less effective blanket for your Earth, if it were. So
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So basically, scientists figured out that our atmosphere traps some of this heat, and there are a few gases, not all of the gases. Oxygen doesn't trap heat. Nitrogen doesn't trap heat, but CO2 and methane and other gases and water vapor actually trap heat. So what they figured out was that the sun radiates onto the earth. Basically, the earth absorbs some of this radiation because basically the radiation comes in the form of visible light, which is in short waves. The earth absorbs this. The land, water, animal, plants absorb it, living things. Then basically the earth radiates back longer light waves, infrared radiation, and these longer light waves are absorbed by greenhouse gases. So like I said, like CO2, like methane and others. And then this radiation does go out, but it goes out into different directions. So some of it goes out back to space, but some of it comes back to Earth. And then what happens is that basically this heat is trapped, like heat would be trapped in the glass of a greenhouse, within the greenhouse. I mean, there are some technical differences between an actual greenhouse and the greenhouse effect on Earth, but
it's pretty close.
It's
a good analogy.
It's a good analogy to show, that heat is just.
So basically, if this is the dragon, that's the sun, and this dragon spits fire. This is the fire. You see?
Yes.
It has this kind of wavelength.
That is way
It's
too
like,
much.
wow, wow, wow. And this is the earth. Okay. it goes to the atmosphere of the Earth and hits the Earth. But what happens after it hits the Earth? What radiates back, the Earth radiates back some wavelengths that are a lot more like this, like
Elongated.
fatty ones. Okay,
Okay.
so the fatty ones cannot go back towards the mighty dinosaur here or whatever this is. So they get bumped into the atmosphere, okay, and then come back or absorbed. So that's the problem here, because the dragon, it spits this kind of fire towards the earth that can go through the atmosphere, most of it or a lot of it. But after it reaches the earth and hits the rocks and people's heads or whatever, the water, then earth radiates back this energy, but it's just too fat and it cannot go properly through the atmosphere back. And that's why it hits, that's why we hit ourselves. It's like, I used to, I was thinking about this example of a microwave. If you have a microwave at home, you will see that it has a kind of like a glass door, but it's not quite, you cannot see very well through it. And it's not a conspiracy there, okay? It's the idea that you don't see through it is because it has some, if you look closely, some metal, almost like honeycombs, like this, some metal things that they only let small holes that have no metals through it. Like it's like a honeycomb made of metal, because it means that the radiation from inside the microwave shouldn't get out, so it doesn't like hit your head and explode you or something. And that's how it is with the atmosphere of Earth. Those waves cannot go back through the atmosphere, because I feel like many people may not understand that idea. Cannot go back properly. That's why we hit ourselves.
Yeah.
So
and basically, yeah, and it's important, to understand that the more of these molecules there are of these greenhouse gases, like CO2, the thicker this blanket gets, and the more heat will get trapped.
Yes, exactly.
Some is okay. Lots not good, or not good, not adaptive for our species currently.
Yeah, because we know that there have been times, when we've had a lot more greenhouse gases on the planet and less. But the thing that's important to understand is that whatever animals and plants and life that lived at that time, it had millions of years to adapt to those conditions. And what happens when those changes happen rapidly is, we know that when those changes have happened rapidly, there have been mass extinctions. And that's basically where we're heading now.
Christian, hi Christian. Whenever you want to talk, you can talk. Okay, is this?
Can you hear me? I'm not
Yes,
sure.
the volume is very low.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my first time trying this. So I
Yeah.
don't know
No.
how my setup is.
That's great. Your volume though, your volume is very very low.
Yeah.
I think.
If you talk close to that mic again, you're good.
Yeah. My camera and my mic are very bad. I only use them for some games, and so I wasn't sure if it will work at all. That's why I was
That's great.
hesitant to join the chat.
That sounds good.
I wrote you last time to ask if I can join, to tell you that I want to join. But yeah, as you can see, my setup is very bad, so that made me hesitant. But
No
I
problem.
really
You
enjoy
can hear very well.
listening to the chat, and I will right now just listen a bit, and if I think of something to add, I will talk to you.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Thank you for joining.
Excellent.
That's great.
Great.
So, yeah, we were talking about changes, that how we see changes in climate. Then we're explaining like how is the climate now basically changing, these greenhouse gases and so forth. So that we kind of know all of these things. And look at the article, such as see if we can explain more before we accuse the accuser here, like maybe people or aliens.
So basically, I wrote about the IPCC as well, so the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, because basically there's an organization of scientists, thousands of scientists around the world that volunteer for this organization to basically give the UN and governmental bodies and the world basically a thorough, non-biased scientific understanding of what's actually going on with the world's climate. So these are experts in their field, in many different fields of science that, like I said, volunteer for this organization to basically go through like thousands and thousands of scientific reports to make bigger reports that basically scientific articles to basically sum them up in big reports. And I mean, whatever the IPCC says, it's quite thorough science because it's been checked many, many times. It's also been questioned by government bodies, by businesses, by a lot of people that are trying to prove them wrong. And basically, the science is clear and gone over by many different scientists.
So it's an international group of scientists that volunteer their time for this, right?
Yeah. And they basically advise the UN on what policies they should make according to where we're going with climate change. They don't conduct the studies now, so they review scientific articles.
And why do you think it's important they are volunteers, though? I know it's just it's stupid to ask this in a Trom-Cast, but
I mean, one reason that's important is because they give you an objective, analysis of what's going on. They're not being paid by anybody to give you this or one, particular answer.
Right.
Yeah, that's best. Have you heard of this group, like IPCC call it?
It sounds familiar.
What do you think it stands for?
What do I think it stands for?
Yep.
The IPPC?
IPCC.
IPCC? International Panel on Climate Change?
Yeah, Intergovernmental Panel on
Okay.
Climate Change.
All right.
See? Yeah, more people should be aware of this aspect that maybe they're not when it comes to climate change, that they're volunteer experts who are trying to not get into the game of money and trades and biases. So are trying to be as objective as possible. That's why they are volunteers, and there are many such, thousands.
Yeah, thousands. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically they write big reports. They write these huge assessment reports every few years, and these are like the main reports that the UN uses to for their meetings to advise governments as to what policies they should make, and so it's regarded by the UN as a very important body, And they write other reports as well, some special reports. Quite interesting, and it's cool also that anybody can have access to their reports. You can just go on the IPCC website and just download or read their reports online.
That's how it should be, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
We should also mention that, of course, the obvious, but the science that is done, to see if climate changes or what changes the climate and how so forth, is not done by NASA. It's done by NASA and this other organization,
NOAA, and a lot of different organizations.
From all kinds of tribes around the world, some that hate each other. Like probably the Russian scientists arrived at the same conclusion as the American scientists when it comes to climate.
And the Chinese.
Even the Chinese. Fuck me. That's
I'm sure in the IPCC you can find plenty of Russian, American, and Chinese. Probably even some Africans.
Imagine.
Yeah. So how can there be a conspiracy in terms of data, unless someone controls all of these kind of things, So I would say the data is quite trustworthy. I mean, if you don't trust, that's the thing, if you don't trust this kind of data, then why would you trust any kind of data? Then you can use the same argument to say that any kind of like tobacco to smoke is good, or doing like or GPS doesn't exist. Maybe like the Earth is flat or whatever you want, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, you should probably trust these organizations.
Yeah, well, that's one problem nowadays is people don't understand science at all. A lot of people, and they don't know who to trust because they don't trust anybody, and that's how you get these groups like Flat Earth. You know.
Mhm. Maybe that's why it's climate change, because the Earth is flat. Maybe you turn it upside down.
Well, I think you just cracked it.
I wonder if those people are worried about climate change.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see the overlap. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, let's see.
I can kind of.
I
Yeah.
wanted to add something here.
Yeah.
I just started my headphones because probably last time you heard some issues because the sound is right next to the microphone, but now it should be better. And yeah, I want to say like I want to introduce myself. I'm from Bulgaria, and here we can. I noticed the climate changing every year, and because it's we have the 4 seasons usually, but each year the climate changes, and we get shorter winter and very different weather changing very rapidly. For example, this year, like February is like other years in March, the weather is changing. One day is 13 degrees, the other day it's -5 with snow, and it's like spring is coming, then winter is back, and spring again, and it's
Mhm.
totally strange weather all the time. It's totally unpredictable, and it's getting worse every year. And yeah, I noticed it just by even without any other someone to tell me how it's changing. I can see it with my own eyes. Yeah, and every year it's changing.
But isn't that good? Because look,
It's gonna
maybe
get
it's
warmer.
nicer. Maybe it's nicer, you know. Why should
Well,
In Russia, that's a popular argument. Like, oh, it's great. It's gonna get warmer here.
yeah, but it's getting very unpredictable. There are floods happening and all other kinds of natural disasters that are happening just because the weather is so changes so rapidly from cold to warm and the other way around. And yeah, so it's not so good. There are bigger haze, for example, and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So why should we concern Sasha? Because look, Christian said that is really nice. The weather is nice. You don't even need winter coats.
The weather might get nicer in some places sometimes, but overall, we will see, and we're already seeing this, more fiercer, longer lasting natural disasters, like the fires in Australia and in California, big fires. This will happen more and more because the hotter the global average temperature is, the more likely there will be fires, the more likely there will be droughts. The hotter heat waves will be when the average temperature is hotter, then heat waves will be even hotter. So we're seeing this every year. Like this past January was the hottest January ever recorded. The last 10 years were the hottest 10 years ever recorded. The 5 hottest years ever recorded, I think, were all in the last decade. So
So
that's.
in a sense, it's like some people call it global warming. Does that make sense, or is more than just global warming?
Yeah, so I mean, climate change is basically caused by global warming, but it's more than just global warming because we're talking about more than just a warming of the planet. We're also talking about the acidification of the ocean. So basically, when there's more CO2 in the air, some of that CO2, about 30%, gets absorbed by the ocean as well. that causes the ocean to become more acidic due to a series of chemical reactions. So the more CO2 in the ocean, the more acidic it will be. And a lot of organisms like coral and plankton, they don't like to live in acidic water, and they might die. So if things like plankton and coral become extinct, then that's a huge problem, because coral is like the base of like home, a home for many fish and many other organisms. I think about 25% of the world's fish at some point live around or in coral reefs. Plankton are like the base of the food web, of the marine food web. They're eaten by little fish and all sorts of little organisms that are eaten by medium fish, that are eaten by larger fish. So climate change is more than just the rising of the Earth's temperature. So that's usually what people refer to as climate change, not just global warming.
Let's put it this way, like Cody, if you were to live 500 years, what would you fear the most when it comes to climate change?
Oh, geez. 500 years. Well, if the ever-increasing powerful storms or some sort of something didn't get me, then it would just be baking alive, probably.
You can live in Antarctica, probably.
For how long? 500 years?
There was a forest there once upon a time. There might be a forest there again in 500 years.
It's that, or I feel like I have to start digging like a subterranean cityscape kind of thing to refuge myself. I'm going underground in 500 years, Theo, right? That's what I'm looking at right now, because the surface does not seem like it's going to be pleasant for human activity.
But that's what it is. It's going to get for us.
It's going to get bad.
But are we going to boil? That's the problem. We're going to boil alive.
I think we will. I think I guess it depends on how much of humanity we're trying to keep alive at a time, because definitely your food production and stuff is going to start taking hits with droughts and everything, and then just chain reactions, transportation breaks down, these things. So if I'm a sane man and a self-sustaining man, then maybe I can hack out my last 500 years in eating subterranean lettuce and things like this.
That's why that's a good point. People may think that this climate change is like things are getting hotter. It's uncomfortable to live to the point of like going out and having a sunburn, and there's like, oh my god, you cannot fucking live in Australia anymore. It's so fucking hot. We don't have water anymore, and like we need more fans. But it's not that really. Is the effect?
Well, it is like that in some places.
Well,
yeah.
Okay.
Immediately, yeah.
That's not the issue. The issue is that
that's not the biggest problem.
Stabilizes all kinds of the food production, floods, because it's like there are regions on Earth that depend on a weather pattern that, they wait for the rain so that they can grow stuff, they can eat stuff. Now it doesn't rain anymore, or it rains in different periods of time, but those plants cannot grow or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it destabilizes all kinds of regions on Earth. And then people are so divided into tribes that some will migrate here, some will migrate there. It will become like poor people are becoming or suffer even more. Waters will rise, even like small rise in water is going to really fuck things up. Near the coastline here, and for the past 10 years or so, probably even a little bit of change in the water, like the level of the water or the storms increasing bit by bit. They really destroy lots of like coastal cities here, and every year they have to rebuild them. I see them every day. We live like 5 minutes. I can throw a rock into the water from here probably if I have enough force in me now. But that's what happens, destabilizes these things, little here, little there, and that's why it fucks our global society. I think that's the biggest threat.
Yeah, and you have to understand also with rising sea levels. Even if it rises a few millimeters going up, that's a lot more horizontal. And the problem is when you have storm surges, for example, they will be much stronger, even with a little bit of rise. So it's not like the problem wouldn't be that all of a sudden, these cities will just be flooded. They will be flooded at certain times of the year. And the more the sea level rises, the more often they will be flooded. And eventually you just won't be able to live there anymore. And another problem is that this salty water from the sea will get into, agricultural land. It will get into water aquifers. There are entire huge cities that are in danger of like losing their fresh water supply because of rising sea levels. I think Jakarta is one of them. Just like millions and millions of people.
How are they projecting for the next 100 years or so that this is going to change?
It's not good.
Depends who ask. Yes.
At
Yeah.
least,
There are some people who say in 10 years will be totally fucked. So yeah, maybe 10, maybe 100 will be fucked very soon.
well, at least you'll be able to mine in the Antarctic.
Yeah. I'm surprised they're not doing that already.
Yeah, right. Staking claims.
Get more oil from Antarctica.
Yeah, right. That'll solve everything.
Mhm.
We just needed more.
Well, they're already doing that with the Arctic. It's like,
Yeah, right.
now they're moving up further and further north.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
The flowers are blooming and like
Yeah,
blooming.
good news. Good news, everyone. The Arctic's melting.
Yeah, like Norway has this operation. I think they have like an oil, whatever the fuck you call it, that's much, much further north. And, a lot of countries are seeing it as like a positive thing that, this northern area is going to be ice-free soon, so we can get more oil from previously unexplored places,
And tourism, stuff like that.
And tourism, yeah. Yeah. So they also, and ship routes. So basically if you go through the Arctic, you can have a really much faster ship route going from China, from Asia to Europe and to North America, I guess. Well, or maybe, yeah.
Mhm.
And, but for some, or cruise ship routes up there as well. But for some of the route, you still need like these crazy like icebreakers. So Russia has invested a lot of money into making like, I don't know, 20 or something more icebreakers. So
Or they
basically,
could wait 20 years and they will melt. So
yeah, we'll just melt soon, so they won't even need the icebreakers. Yeah.
but we are laughing, but you said something like in the article about the increase in temperature for the next 100 or so years. What is the projection if these changes continue at the same rate?
So according to the IPCC, the projection is, I think, at least 3.7 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And that might not sound like much, but yeah, it's quite dangerous, actually. And it will probably be a lot higher than that, actually. Because basically the IPCC wrote, well, let's see, okay. At first, it kind of warned the UN and other governmental bodies and whoever the fuck it could that 2 degrees is going to be quite dangerous. So we should keep the Earth from rising above 2 degrees, basically higher than pre-industrial levels of CO2. Here you get it. The temperature, right? But within the last like few years, basically, they realized that actually 2 degrees was already quite dangerous, and even a 1.5 degrees should be kind of a safer zone that we should try to aim for, because even at 2 degrees we can set off a bunch of dangerous tipping points. So that includes, the kind of the melting of certain ice shelves, perhaps the Greenland ice sheet and the Antarctic ice sheet. And so basically what happens there is the ice sheets are melting. And when the ice sheets melt, we get a lot more water into the ocean, right? And that causes the sea level to rise. Plus the temperature rises, so that also causes the water to expand and sea levels to rise. And basically the ice sheets, right now, they're still kind of in control, right? But if you think about like a lollipop, and you're licking a lollipop, and at first you lick it for a while, and it seems like it's all good, and you can continue licking this lollipop for a while. But once you start getting towards the end of the lollipop, you see it getting kind of thin, and then you can kind of like crush it all and just like eat it really fast, and it kind of all just disappears fast. So it's kind of the same thing for the ice sheets. Eventually we'll hit a tipping point where we won't be able to stop it from melting further, because they're like that lollipop that you keep on licking, and they will just like
Oh, that's a good analogy. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So that's one dangerous impact. Another one is that corals will basically go extinct. I mean, this is the, like well, 99% of corals will die with a 2-degree temperature rise. And I don't think that we will be able to stop the temperature from rising below less than 2 degrees.
So why are corals so important? Because they are very, very ugly, some people may say. Why are they so important?
Well, like I said, 25% of fish live in corals, or at least at some point of their lives live in coral.
Or rely on corals.
Yeah,
Right.
so they need that. That's their habitat, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But why? Because you explained that to me. I didn't know that much, maybe. But why are they? Why would they disappear? Like, so what the fuck happens then?
Okay, well, you heard about bleaching, right?
Yeah, but what do you mean, like
So
bleaching?
basically, what happens is when it gets really hot in the ocean. So ocean has heat waves as well. So if it gets a bit too hot for the corals, they're not happy with that, and basically they have a symbiotic relationship with, I think, some kind of algae, and they need this algae to get food. So corals are like these little tiny animals, basically, and when it gets too hot, the corals, or too cold, the corals basically kind of freak out and they kick that algae out, and that's why they bleach. And you've seen like white corals, right? Coral bleaching and many many places. So yeah, that basically what happens is they can't handle the heat and they kick out that algae, and without that algae they can't live very well. If the temperature comes back to what they're used to, they may be able to recover, but if it doesn't, and if they go through more and more stress, they will die because they can't live without that symbiotic relationship.
And they destroy an ecosystem basically there.
Yeah.
They're part of that ecosystem. Without them.
Yeah, and the other problem is ocean acidification. So that's, again, because there's too much more CO2 than what the corals are used to, and they need that CO2 to be able to live stony skeletons. So we'll see all sorts of organisms, from like shells to crabs to corals and plankton and all sorts of organisms, basically going extinct or being threatened, endangered because of ocean acidification.
Yeah, that sounds bad.
Yeah. It's not good.
For those who understand what it means, it's really bad.
Yeah, right.
What's the good stuff? Is it time to talk about the good things, or we keep?
Oh, we have more bad stuff. Hold on, because we didn't talk who's the fault here. Because if you don't talk who's the fault here, then you don't know what's the problem.
Yeah.
So if you want, let's jump into like, okay, is Sasha's fault the climate change? Are we one who creates the climate change? Like, what the fuck happens? Probably is the Earth movement around the sun or something like that that causes climate change. What's the problem? Who creates the climate change? Why are we changing now faster than in the past? Why?
Somebody want to answer?
Oh, me? Okay, all right. I was waiting. We've made some changes around here. Note this wonderful internet gathering interface we have here. So we've pretty radically changed the face of the Earth and our relationship with it in terms of industrialization, I guess, is a main driver here. So I mean, just our standard of living being increased, climate change, and our ways of generating energy seem to be, I don't want to say a waste, but a consequence of deciding to live life this way. And that it's, what is it, renewable, like we are out of the sustainable, renewable cycle of the Earth. Like, we are very much using more trees than we are being able to put back, kind of thing.
So let's start with like burning fossil fuels.
That's the biggest no, I guess, is kind of fossil fuels, especially when we're aware of like alternative energy sources. But this is just basically digging up carbon sinks out of the ground and then putting stuff that is, negligibly doing nothing in the ground and does something in the atmosphere, which is making that blanket a little bit thicker for us. And yeah, these things persisting for 100 years or so has got us to a point and understanding where this is probably going to cause some problems for us down the road if we don't do some changes.
Are you guys, Noel or Christian, do you disagree with this?
No, I know all these things, and uh, yeah, I'm just I've listened to things your Trom and Zeitgeist and all things like that for more than 10 years now, and I know every single fact about these things. And you don't tell me anything new. Like,
But that's a good thing. That's a great thing, That's a
uh,
great thing that you're informed about these things. For
yeah,
for
Well,
many people, it might be new things. This.
it's your like what you're saying now. It sounds like satire to me, like
You're right.
something that you're joking with it. But for me, this is very serious, and I know why you do it because people who listen who don't know it are getting informed in this way.
Mhm.
But yeah, for me, it's just yeah, I know these things, and I was thinking about my I don't watch news nowadays. The only news I can say I watch is the Lee Camp's show Redacted Tonight. Do you
Oh
know it?
wow, yeah, yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah, and he spoke recently about one of the main guys in the financial sector, the investment that make on Wall Street. They He analyzes the market and says what people should invest in and what they shouldn't invest in. And recently on TV, he told people that he wouldn't invest in oil anymore and tobacco. And the person who interviewed him was like, "Whoa, what the fuck!" Like they can't imagine Americans that oil and tobacco will ever end their dominance in the markets. And obviously even those top guys that usually support these things now understand that oil is doomed to fail because young people are understanding how bad it is. And so that's something recently I heard, like good news that maybe is something happening in the
We're
good
gonna
way.
choose to stop using oil before we burn it all.
I hope so.
there
But yeah, there is still a lot of money to be made with it, so uh, there will be still
will be blood.
another. Yeah, 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 a lot
Yeah. So,
more.
so basically, that's the consensus, right? That humans are causing this rapid change of the climate, and the main reason is that they take these dinosaur bones and farts basically from the underground and they put them into the atmosphere, and that creates what we explained in the beginning, this greenhouse gas effect, the trapping of the heat
Yeah.
in our
So
atmosphere.
yeah, so basically, this oil, coal, gas, all of this stuff is basically a bunch of stuff that was once dead, millions of years ago. It was alive, and then it died, and then went under the ground and cooked and compressed and formed this oil, coal, gas, fossil fuels. That's why they're called fossil fuels, because they're made out of dead stuff. And this kind of stuff has a lot of carbon in it because, like, think about what plants do. They take in carbon. That's how they eat, basically.
Actually,
Sunlight and carbon.
as far as
And
uh,
CO2. Yeah.
it's more of a photo, not so much from the animals. That most of the oil is from vegetation.
Plants. Yeah.
Yep.
It's more of a quality than the animals, but yeah, it's like people like to think it's dinosaurs, but it's other things mostly.
Ferns.
Yeah, just a small percentage.
Burns.
actually dinosaurs, but yeah,
Sounds
it,
better dinosaurs, so maybe it makes
yeah,
people more aware. Like, hey, we use dinosaurs to fuel our society.
for me, it's strange that we still need to uh, tell people about these things. For me, it sounds like something that people should know for a decade at least by now. So yeah, I'm more interested in the things that are happening to counter these things and how people are changing their habits. Even here in Sofia, we now have a small car sharing system, for example, that seems like a small but nice step towards having a better, more sustainable system. And uh, even here in Bulgaria, the thinking is very uh, old. Like people are still not getting the information, and even here, where I think it's so behind in development, uh, still things like that are happening. And I think in global sense, if you follow the trends, and there is some improvement in people's thinking and in the ways we try to tackle climate change, and a lot more people are starting to watch what they're eating, which also contributes a lot to climate. So things are happening slowly, and yeah, I'm more interested in how things are developing. For me, it's an old news that the climate is getting worse, and like, okay, it is, and we see it with our own eyes every year. But what are we doing to change it is the more important topic. I think it's better to be discussed nowadays because, yeah, I think people should know these things by now.
Sasha wrote about a bit about what people are trying, what human beings are trying to do to change this factory. So what are they trying to do, Sasha, on like global
Yeah.
scale?
Well, I wrote more about. So they started having, they started understanding that this is going to be a problem. And in the 90s, they made, the first big international climate change meeting, the UNFCCC. They created the UNFCCC, United Nations Convention on Climate Change. Basically, where they had this goal to, not allow to stop climate change from interfering with life as it is, basically. Um, and basically, every year they get together for climate change conferences. They made agreements, not to emit more CO2 than that will cause basically a danger to us. But these kind of agreements, they don't really do anything. So the first agreement was just no penalties. We basically, a bunch of countries, many countries got together and agreed to, keep their emissions low. This didn't work. Then they made another one, the Kyoto Protocol. You're probably also aware of this.
Yeah.
And this one, they had penalties for developed nations. That one didn't work either. Then they made most recent one, the Paris Agreement, and again, it's just a pledge to act. At the same time, there's, like you were saying, there's individual people trying to go green and make individual choices that would hopefully help the situation. But this entire time, the emissions of greenhouse gases has just been like rising like this very, very fast. And things need to change really fast because basically, according to the IPCC, we need to lower emissions by 45% relative to 2010 levels by to 2030. And we basically have to cut them completely by 2050. And how the way we're going now is that companies are investing more into industries that burn fossil fuels.
Even countries, entire countries, right?
Yeah, and countries, companies, yeah. Whoever's involved in this, they're planning to expand their business because it's still a very good business. So even though some countries are actually growing their renewable industries, they're also growing their fossil fuel industries.
Yeah.
You had some numbers there. I think that were quite interesting. Like this country who like pledges to like China, for example. Like as people sometimes hear about China building more and more like solar panels and putting more
Well,
and
they
more.
are, but they're also, planning to build like 700, at least 700 new coal plants.
Yeah.
Let's also mention
Yeah.
how our diets of heavy meat, like eating these creatures, how like their farts produce methane, and that's more absorbent than carbon dioxide.
Yeah, this is also a problem, and they're also cutting down rainforest. In Brazil, it's primarily for cattle. So, but I decided not to. Yeah, I mean, I decided not to go into like which industry pollutes more because I feel like it's not really that important because they all need to stop basically in order
When
for us to solve this problem.
when I think about these problems, I always end up thinking we try as individuals to change things and we try to be aware and our small steps are nothing compared what the big companies and corporations can achieve with a minimum effort. And that's the saddest thing to me that these guys on top of these companies they like don't even think about it and uh, it's very sad like it's their planet as well, don't they get this? That's the strangest thing to me, like can't you understand how bad things are happening and how easily you can change things only with mm, design, not even uh, they don't even have to invest that much, they just need to change their ways and they won't even get poorer, they will get richer but in a different way. Again, if they still want to play this stupid game of Monopoly, at least play it in a way that you will survive on the planet. Why don't you want to survive? Why do you keep want to get worse planet, worse conditions? Why do you want to hide from climate change instead of just tackling it with your immense wealth that you've gathered for like that is sitting in your bank account and is not contributing in any fucking way, it's just sitting there getting you more money and in meanwhile people are dying. They prefer to go to live on Mars instead of preserving the fucking planet they have. uh, it's totally nonsensical. I am sorry, guys, but I need to stop for a little bit because my girlfriend is sleeping in the other room. I will thought and listen to you a bit more and then walk out. But it was a pleasure to join you, and I will probably do it sometimes again. And yeah, I love what you're doing, Theo. I'm very grateful for your movie. It is still one of my favorite movies, the Trom movie, and I always recommend it to people that are interested in everything that it talks about. And yeah, guys, thank you for doing this and keep
Thank you.
doing it. And yeah, I'll see you soon next time. And yeah,
Yeah, participate more if you can. Thank you very much for
bye for
participating.
now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, like Christian was saying, why are companies changing? The way that they do things. Because even in this slide, you can argue that they can even make money from renewable energies and from clean sources of energies generally. Why don't they, switch to that? But I think it's more complicated maybe than this because some are really deeply invested into like burning fossil fuel. So it may not be that easy to switch. On the other hand, I was thinking like I was seeing here in where I live, we have a port, because it's like near the sea. You have many ports, and when I look at this port, it has hundreds, if not thousands of boats. Now I was thinking all of these boats, most of them are not electric. They don't burn any fossil fuel. They use the wind, to push them around. They are clean in that sense. However, it's a massive amount of waste, and those things are not used. Those things take energy to build, and so forth. So even though they are clean, the way that they are produced are not very clean. So in a sense, if I feel like this argument is more like if all of the boats, most of the boats in the world were burning fossil fuels to navigate, someone will say, why not make them to use the wind, make them clean? Look at today's situation. Most of them are like that. Instead, it's a big problem. It's a big problem of waste and so forth. So I think it's the same with cars. It's the same maybe with energy overall. Even if they migrate to being clean, the process of making them may not be clean. Like Tesla, for example, Tesla is going to put a big toll on producing batteries and producing a waste in that regard, maybe a different kind of waste. We also have the microplastics in the oceans and in the atmosphere that is produced by maybe making solar panels or something else of the sort. So I feel like even if we migrate to in a companish way, in a way that let's make profit from renewable energies, because they want to make profit, they will not care that much about the process of building them or making them clean and so forth. So I feel like we are still going to fuck things up. Besides all of this. So what do you guys think? Is that correct in a sense?
I think it's environmental problems. They will always be second
Right.
to making profit. And so long as that's the case, what will be more important is making profit. It doesn't matter what, how the company is polluting or what the fuck they're doing. And that's the problem. Cody.
Yeah. No. Well, no. I was agreeing with that. Like right now, I mean, even I think renewables has surpassed fossil fuels in some areas, but that the subsidies are still in place, so that it kind of makes oil still more desirable because it is technically still more profitable, but it's this law game and incentives structure we set up for it. And yeah, doubling down on what Sasha said, so long as profits next quarter is like before humans enter into the equation anywhere, then I mean it just makes sense that even if when renewables passes like the subsidiaries and whatever, or the subsidies rather, they're still going to make it as cheaply as possible. However that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, so even if we fully ran on renewable energy and electric cars and whatever the fuck, even if we lived in a kind of clean energy system, in this system, we will still cause, just like Tio said, just a ridiculous amount of waste in many ways, even if we manage to solve climate change.
Yeah, planned obsolescence and these, like, you have to keep making money. Like that's a thing that's always in there that they can't take their minds off of. Instead of here's a global disaster that's coming, let's ignore the money factor and let's fucking deal with it, right?
Yeah, I mean when the aim of the game is just to make a profit from an infinite amount of resources, because that's what they act like. They don't act like there's some kind of cap on anything. As long as there's a profit to be made, then of course it's not sustainable.
I'm wondering how, for example, take Musk, how his drive towards renewables and electric vehicles and so forth, how that mixes with the fact that he's pushing more and more for the privatization of space, and those fucking penises or whatever you call them, like these big rockets. Great, but they consume a lot of fucking fuel.
Yeah.
And if the space tourism will become a thing, then that's also a kind of polluting mix to promote instead of in terms of space tourism. I'm not saying about exploration of space and so forth.
It's like farting on the earth on your way out to space. So yeah, so it's just like any country, you know, all sorts of European countries and US and whatever the fuck other rich countries promote human rights. At the same time, they sell more weapons than any other country. So it's the same thing with like, let's switch to electric cars and renewable energy, and at the same time, you're fucking doing space tourism and putting rockets out to space.
And promoting consumerism.
Yeah, exactly.
Noel, you want to say something? Noel, you want to say? If you want to say something, just yeah. So even more so, individual actions like let's recycle, let's not pollute much, let's not consume much, let's eat more of a vegetarian diet, because of course the meat industry puts a massive toll. I think it's like the entire agricultural field, agriculture, not only livestock. It's like 24% or something like that, responsible for 24% are of greenhouse gases, an overall fuckery of the climate. So even if you do that, these things are too small, like small actions that will not have a big impact, because we can look for the past 30 years what happened in terms of those agreements. Even when they install lots of like solar panels and so forth, we are still going downhill. You see, so that's the problem. Second, even if these things succeed, which is I find it nearly impossible in this society, there will be other problems. There will be just a billion problems like before, in a sense. Microplastic is another. It's the new climate change. You will hear more and more about microplastics, because that's a really big factory. It's in the air, it's in the food, it's in like fish are fucked up because of that. It's in the water and so forth. That will be a big problem. You'll hear more about that, and then in the future will be something different, probably. So we just move on.
Yeah, and maybe they will solve climate change with technology. It's possible. I'm not, maybe not, but there is, negative emissions technology. So technologies to take CO2 out of the air, and probably with other greenhouse gases as well. And
in theory, we can talk a bit in theory, like what are the solutions there to directly combat that. So let's see. We can each of us say like three things that come into mind. Like I would say solar panels. I think it's a mind-blowing technology. Convert directly the sunlight into energy. I would say use the power of the waves, because that's also a massive amount of energy stored in the sea. And you can also use lakes and other things like that for storing energy. That's also a great idea. It's like big batteries, huge, massive batteries. That's like three things that are coming to my mind. What about you guys? What do you know technology?
What about geothermal energy? Like
geothermal energy.
Exactly.
I don't think nuclear. I think there's like some. I'm not sure about nuclear.
It could be, yeah.
Maybe that's.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think if you have greenhouse gases from nuclear energy.
Yeah, it's good. The only
there could be other problems.
Yeah, it's the waste that becomes an issue. So
radioactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, planting forests.
Wow.
It's a very important one, actually. Taking care of wetlands. Wetlands actually taking a lot of greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
That is true.
No.
And then I see.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, and actual technology that takes CO2 out of the air. I mean, that already exists, but not on a massive scale because it's really expensive right now. So, and the problem is also companies don't really have incentive to invest into these kind of things, because how do they make money from making our atmosphere better?
Right.
So maybe eventually the UN will be like, okay, guys, we're fucked. We need to give as much money as possible to this like tech company to create better technology for taking CO2 out of the air. And maybe they will do that, who knows? And maybe we can somehow stabilize the climate using technology. But even if we do that, we'll still have a shit ton of other problems, including the acidification of the ocean and warming of the ocean, because that will keep on, and rising sea levels, because they will continue to rise even if we stop emissions now. Yeah, sorry.
No, Alice, if you wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Yes. What I was going to say was that many developing nations, like I used to live in Cuba, and they all want to have like the same lifestyle as in the United States where I now live, and they all want like their own cars, and they're like, and it's like, yeah, they want the same lifestyle, which is very like unsustainable. It's probably gonna just cause like more destruction of the environment, more pollution. They're trying to chase like that image of like that's how like a good life is supposed to be. Like everybody has their own car, or and they have, you get what I'm saying.
Yo.
Yeah, and it's all over the world. Yeah.
And also traveling and so forth. It's almost similar with the what happens with disagreements between tribes, because it's like US is like, and others are like, well, no, India is like, well, motherfuckers, you developed using fossil fuels, why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we develop using those fucking things? And they're like, we don't want to be part of this fucking thing. And then US is like, well, we are too powerful, and then we don't want to be part of this fucking thing because they're not part of this fucking thing. So of course, underdeveloped nations, tribes, they too want to become like US in a way, you know.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that's the problem with like sustainable development, because there's no such thing as sustainable development in this system, because the UN, for example, acknowledges that, they acknowledge that, most of the emissions are the fault of first world countries, of rich countries like the US and Europe. So they want to also, and they also acknowledge that these countries are poor and they're living in shitty conditions, and their conditions, they should be given the chance to improve their conditions. And in order to improve their conditions, they need energy. They need to burn fossil fuels, basically, because that's the easiest way for them, basically, to improve their conditions. And that's why, for example, in the Kyoto Protocol, they only punished rich countries, developed nations, not developing nations. And so countries like India and China are developing nations, so they weren't punished for not meeting their goals of lowering emissions. Because of that, the US especially was like, this isn't fair, China doesn't get punished. This is, and of course, regardless, it's a problem because China's emissions are like a quarter of the world's emissions or something like that. Anyway, the US, India, and China make up for more than half of all global emissions. And that's the stupid thing, is because they keep on just blaming each other for the problem. And they don't acknowledge that the problem is, okay, they can't put the environment first because they're always concerned about the economy. Because what's their concern about why they can't lower emissions? Oh, our economy is going to suffer. So that's the problem.
Because if you look at it, like the industries that contribute the most to this fuckery in our society are energy production, and energy overall, like how you heat your house, the overall cities, lights, and so forth, energy production, agriculture with livestock and all of that shit, transportation. This would be like, I think those are the three main big fat problems. We have solutions for all of them. Energy production, we have so many, from geothermal to like tidal waves to like even like we have a book in Trom book called AA World. Even in 2013, I was showcasing how you can basically put the world on renewable energies, and there are really in-depth studies showcasing how you can do that. So energy, we can do it. Agriculture, we do it in a very old-fashioned way. I also linked to a book called Eating the World in Ourselves from Trom, showing how like the livestock industry is like a shithole. Not only that, it kills lots of animals, but it like pollutes like fuck. The deforestation, and then cow farts and burps and all of these fucking of these creatures for us to eat. But if you use a more like a vegetarian diet and more like vertical farms, vertical agricultural belts and so forth, where you can produce indoor and control the environment and so forth, you can pretty much do it. I mean, there are many people who presented this in a very scientific way many years ago. I remember even in Trom, I think, in Trom documentary, I was posting about this kind of vertical farms and so forth. And transportation. No, for fuck's sakes, we are using cars. Like, what the fuck is the most ridiculous, mind-blowingly stupid thing to use cars for each individual? Like, anyone can have 2 or 3 cars. And these cars, 95% of the time, stay parked. No one uses them. Well, imagine which is not difficult to imagine, a transportation system that is for people, not individual, but mass transportation, from trains to self-driving cars to like all kinds of buses that are automated and so forth. It was this cool image that I put in the Money Game and Beyond, showcasing a street of cars and a street where is a bus. The same amount of people, how much space do they take? So the same, like think 30 people. If you put them in one bus, it's just one bus. 30 people in 30 cars is like a massive amount of like vehicles basically. So we have solutions. It's nothing new. It's just that there is no incentive, so the people in today's world isn't either don't move in the proper direction or very slowly to the point of like not even making an impact, and that's scary because now we have to do it quite quickly. So that concerns me in the sense that I don't see. Yes, maybe there is some progress here and there. I don't see it quick enough to reverse some of this shit. I just don't see it. When US is like, oh, I'm not going to participate to this even this fucking agreements that no one forces me because I'm so boss. I don't like that. We use Fahrenheit. What the fuck? I never heard of Celsius. Counter measurements. It's scary.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah,
people
and to promote, yeah.
That's why when people say, okay, you talk about so many negative things, I know. What are the solutions? Well, we wrote a book, AA World. Look, tons of solutions. No, it took me many months to like lay down. That's just one of the thousands of books out there. There are solutions, but I think people don't focus on the problem. People don't take into account our society that incentivizes these kinds of behaviors that are destructive towards the environment and ourselves. Unless we talk about that, then we're not going to address anything. So it was this girl, very nice girl, who came here to visit someone's friend. She was quite young and she was taking part in this UN youth meetings, and they were talking about the future of the youth and so forth in Germany. I think they have this kind of thing in Germany with youth panels, which could be good. But she wanted to get involved with UN to change something in this world, say climate change, for example. And I was talking to her, and I asked her, well, she goes to many meetings. She was going to many meetings, and I was asking her, how many times in those meetings do you talk about human behavior, for example? And she said, never. They never talk about human behavior. Well, then, how can you address the problem if you don't talk about human behavior? Like, what makes people behave so shitty? It must be the environment. But if you don't talk about such things, they only talk about politics. Like, let's put some laws to prevent some companies from doing harm. Well, guess what? Volkswagen put a device in their cars that treated for thousands of cars, not giving a shit. Guess Volkswagen is from Germany, so these youth panels, I don't give a what. My last point, and then I'll stop so other people can talk. I said to her, I talked about this analogy, and I think it's a good analogy. I was thinking like all of these actions today to tackle climate change with renewable energies, with cutting down the CO2 and this and that, are like an ambulance that wants to like intervene quickly so someone doesn't die. They quickly go there, go there. They may save a few lives here and there, but in the end, it's not sustainable. What we need is like hospitals and research centers who analyze why are people getting sick and making a healthcare system. And I feel that's how it's in today's society. Many ambulances. People think, oh my God, deforestation. Let's go plant some trees. Oh my God. Those people pollute. Okay, let's cut the pollution. But we don't have a research somewhere to look overall what creates those problems. Let's create a different kind of environment. Else we are fucked. You produce more ambulances, no research, no clinical trials, no hospitals. So I think that's why when people ask what's the solution, I would say the solution is to understand that the problem is our environment that pushes people to be so shitty on a global scale. If we don't address that motherfucking thing, you are going to create ambulances and we are going into the same directions, saving a life or two on our way, but not much, I think.
Yeah.
That's
Wow. I agree on the fact that there's no scientists in these government meetings.
Which ones?
At least in the United States, our president said like
Oh,
global
didn't they
warming.
like fire like the like environmental like what do you call it?
EPA?
No,
Action
no,
Agency? Or no?
no. advisor or something that
Oh,
was
okay.
and put in place like some climate change skeptic when Trump came into power. Anyway, there's all sorts of bullshit going on in the States. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, yeah, there's no scientists. That's why I think like there's not a lot of applied sciences like into our problems. Instead of just it's just they all think about it in like in terms of companies or just like laws, not like actually like developing technologies.
But even
You
if
get me?
there were even if there were scientists, like, do you think they would have a there were good scientific advisors? Do you think they would have a chance of solving the problems in the
Well,
U.S., for example?
what I meant by like there's no scientists in like these government meetings. It's like Tio said that like human behavior is not talked about. So they're all trying to just deal with the symptoms by passing a new law or yeah, these laws don't do anything because anybody can just like drop their pollution into the river as long as nobody sees you can do it.
Yeah.
They're not really thinking about like there's no like scientists who talk about like psychology or like from different fields, and it's just politics and money in the end.
Yeah, how can you exclude the human animal, from the equation when the human animal creates those problems? For me, it's just ridiculous because
Yeah.
it that much. It's funny because scientists usually should think completely outside of the box. You don't like see some energy coming from space and be like, oh, I think it must be whatever, aliens. No, you really analyze it to see where it comes from, what it could be. No, you don't give a fuck nationalities or whatever. When it comes to analyze our society, though, somehow, as far as I've seen, people don't need to think, they don't see humans as being something to analyze. They just see humans as something that just are, and we have to just put laws or whatever. Companies pollute, put a law, not why companies pollute. Let's see why companies, let's see why Volkswagen lied, not punish Volkswagen, because Volkswagen doesn't give a fuck. There are so many companies who put aside money for punishment because they know it's cheaper for them to like deal with the fucking lawsuits, and they have some money specifically for that. Like, okay, we polluted the fucking thing, they caught us. Doesn't matter, we pay 2 billion and fuck off.
That's true.
Yeah. And somehow you think out of like all kind of like governmental bodies or whatever institutions, the UN would at least try to analyze the global system as a whole. But no, they're just ambulances, like Tio said, and they try to advise and make certain agreements, make certain rules. But don't look at the overall problem of what causes humans to behave the way they're behaving.
Yeah, and I'm sure people may get disappointed when they hear these kind of conclusions from us, or those who don't understand me, they get disappointed because they're like, they want solutions now, and I understand that,
Yeah.
But like I explained, there are so many solutions, technical solutions, for very good. But these people don't take into account even discussing about human behavior and seeing our society a bit from afar, not being part of, but from afar, to see why people create these kind of things. Because in the end, if you think about it, look, people, who creates these fucking things? It's not like they come from outside somewhere. Human beings kind of do these fucking things. They kill billions of animals to eat. They put so much pollution out there. So they kind of understand that. Most people understand that, okay, well, of course it's humans. What they don't understand is that the environment creates this behavior. So if you don't change the environment, you don't change the behavior. The only thing that they want is just to punish the behavior in the hope that others won't repeat the same mistakes or the same behaviors, which is proven for the past hundreds of thousands of years it doesn't fucking work. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. I know we sound very pessimistic and like, oh, but you guys, you have these fucking ideas. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But then keep on doing what you're doing. And
Yeah,
see
and see how much hotter it's gonna get and more fucked up.
yeah. I mean,
There's no thinking. Oh, sorry.
yeah. Sorry. No.
There's no thinking outside the box. It's like they can only think in what we have. If you start talking about something like, instead of being like just based on money, or why don't we just like put up like a place for scientists to discover something, they start like thinking it's like communism. Like, if you start talking about something outside of how they currently think, they start living like, whoa, like, hold up, that's unrealistic. Or,
Yeah, I saw this recently. I think it's this guy, Sanders, Bernie Sanders or something,
Yeah.
who wants to be the president of the biggest, most powerful tribe in the world, US. And in US, they have private healthcare, which is just one way of saying that, okay, you're fucked. If you don't have money, you're fucked.
True.
And this guy, what he proposes is more like what Spain has, or most of other tribes have, this universal healthcare. Like, it's paid by people's taxes and it's kind of free for people in that regard. And I've seen this funny comment somewhere, like some people getting worried, be like, "Oh yeah, you want to make ambulances free? Yeah, what if they're free? People will call them like taxis to go home. They have this mentality like, oh, it's free."
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you and your friends will get off, from their bar, call an ambulance, and then have the ambulance take them to their house by the hospital.
And I saw a debate between like some higher up in U.S. government like healthcare system debates with others about private healthcare versus state-run healthcare, and even the top like official is this woman. She's like, well, but if we make one of her arguments was like, if we make free healthcare, people will abuse it and then make appointments to the doctor, even if it's not necessary. So it will going to become a problem. And why I'm telling you this example is that to showcase how people can, in some parts of the world, can get used to these free things being like, of course, healthcare should be free, and they behave very well. I have free healthcare here in Spain. Yeah, through taxes. I don't pay, luckily, but I don't make thousands, hundreds of appointments. I never called a fucking ambulance to get me home because I was drunk. I behave well. Most people behave well. So on one side, people are used to this kind of free things. So based on that, we can do more of these free things. On the other hand, you can see how people exaggerate, like in those people from US, exaggerate and project these really unrealistic behavioral traits that they say that will develop in this kind of free access society. So that's what we are saying here. Like, make those things more free and free for people. So people have access to food, maybe people have access to healthcare, to clothes, or to apartments and so forth, shelter and other things. The more free you make them, the more sane the behavior. Okay. So your projections about this kind of future, I think they don't hold true. That's what I'm proposing here. Do that so you reduce consumption. So you make people more and more educated because they have maybe more free time instead of trading their time to consume for a job. They will be able to focus on climate change. What the fuck are they talking about? Climate change, okay. Let's see what that's about. Educate themselves. Be more relaxed, be more calm, be more like proactive, volunteer in this world. And I think you can do it. I think you can do it. I don't know how exactly, but I think it's not enough evidence that it can work. Okay, so that's the argument here. I think it can work if we do it like that.
Amen.
Yeah, and I mean, if we don't, probably we're gonna be fucked.
Thanks, Sasha.
As much as I agree with Gio that it could work, probably we'll kill ourselves off this planet before that. But yeah, if we don't, analyze the problem from a holistic, global point of view, where you actually try to understand, like Tio was talking about, human behavior, what causes people to do this, what causes companies to do this, to pollute and stuff. And you just try to make these agreements where, okay, let's try to lower emissions. Let's try not to go, above 1.5 degrees Celsius. It's not going to work because companies will still be incentivized to burn fossil fuels, and they'll still be incentivized to make and sell more and more and more shit. So if we don't look at it from a global point of view, we won't fix the problem.
If you're a surgeon, you don't stop a genitalia. You don't be like, okay, I'm not touching that. I ain't touching that. It's just like God said or whatever. We do surgery everywhere, but not genitalia. You don't care. You are a surgeon. I had some problems recently. They had to like insert the camera through the male organ to see what the fuck is happening. They don't put that aside, okay? They don't. So they analyze the entire body. They don't are ashamed. Well, in that regards, if you are a scientist and you study the society, don't just stop at like, oh, but it's capitalism or whatever the fuck. I don't go into analyze the fucking thing. Don't be afraid. You should do that. Okay, don't stop at genitalia. That's my point here. No, don't stop at that. That's
Yeah.
what you should do. I really,
So you're saying capitalism is genitalia?
I think it's something.
so capitalism is genitalia in a way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, of course. It's like people are like, oh, but capitalism. What? I've only heard good things about it. It's progress. What do you mean? How can you separate climate change from the fucking system, from capitalism? Like
We traded for many years. That's how we work. We have to like take shit, give shit, take shit, give shit. We did this for many years. So at least analyze it. Isn't that fucking us up? Because it does. It puts us into this kind of monopoly game of environment. So that fucks us up. But people don't like to look into that. Because that's like, oh, no. Ooh. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do here with Trom, like exposing the genitalia of this. Talk about it, make people comfortable with it.
the whole body.
The whole.
Of course, the whole body, but I'm focusing on that because people
Gio loves to focus on the genitalia.
Yeah, right.
don't talk about it. And I've seen that with so-called normal people that I call normal people. If I talk to them about, oh, we have to trade, and what if we didn't have to trade? We just access things that we want, and they are all so like, oh my god, what the fuck are you talking about? What? They're like their brain is like turning upside down, and like
They're so indoctrinated.
Yeah, and start calling you all sorts of whatever anarchist or communist or whatever.
yeah.
What is
What
a
are you?
library?
It's like
Yeah.
yeah. But it's like you can't even talk about a subject without projecting some kind of big idea.
That's why you have to challenge them. Challenge them. I used to talk about these kinds of trade and stuff with my family. My father, for example, he was like very like, what? Shut the fuck up. But in time, because I am very stubborn about this fucking thing and I keep on talking, they might listen, they might learn a thing or two here and there, so keep on doing it. What else can you do, right? Yeah.
Education is very important. Education, like getting people like these ideas out, even though they may not agree at it first.
It's in there. It's in there after that,
Yes.
and they can grapple with the idea in their head. And, oh God, what is that thing that keeps haunting me?
You really have to start.
A trade-free world. Oh.
But I feel like with climate change, it's quite clear because it's just, I mean, the science is clear, the evidence is clear, and the solutions that they're trying, they're just not working. Like they're not working. They're not going to work in this system, in this tribal system. I mean.
Yeah, and on the other hand, there are these people who think that these things are not even true, so they don't even bother with the subject. They say that it's just, you say it's real, you say there are lots of evidence there, but I don't think there are.
Yeah.
And social networks are contributing to this confusion. Not themselves, but the structure they are growing into.
Yeah, but I think 10, 20 years from now, probably there'll be very few of those people after seeing a lot more natural disasters.
Well, people are still
and
seeing
problems
that
and
so-called capitalist society, where this is lots of problems, and they still support it, for the past hundreds of years. They're like, well, I think it's great. I think, yes, 9 million people or whatever die every year of starvation. We throw away lots of food a third or whatever, but we make iPhones,
Yeah.
Wow.
something like that, So what was the conclusion there, Sasha? Like in your article, after going to all of these sources and all of this, what was the conclusion? What was
So basically, in the end, I had this kind of conversation that I had basically with an alien talking with a human to kind of analyze the whole situation from an alien perspective.
you talked to an alien?
I talked to an alien, and the alien asked, like, "Hey, humans, like, what's causing all of this?" And I mean, basically, I went into what we were just discussing, and came to the conclusion that, yeah, I mean, the system is just the climate change is just a byproduct of this system because it's not a sustainable system. It's based on selling more and more shit, using more and more energy. It's not based on science. It's just based on who can profit more. And so long as that keeps on going, we're not going to be able to solve climate change. So we need to take a more global, holistic outside look on this kind of problem.
An
And
An enema. Enema.
an enema, yeah, we need an enema, yeah.
Brain enema. Jack was talking about the brain enema.
Oh
You know what?
my.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I linked to two of Trom books, The Money Game and The Origin of Most Problems, and would be great to send this article off to really hardcore environmentalists and climate people that are really into climate change, because I feel like it's the most obvious. It should be the most obvious for them that this isn't working. This is a huge problem, and it's just not working. And what's stopping this problem from happening? Okay, because nations are afraid to lower emissions because they're afraid to lose money. They're afraid that their economy won't grow so much. So maybe we should take a look at that.
Yeah, what's economy? What is this money?
Yeah.
Teach kids about that. Okay, Daddy, what's an economy? And Daddy doesn't know because Daddy thinks that economy is science. It's complicated. Only economists know economy.
Yeah. So I also explained like basically the alien asked like, okay, what's an economy? Because basically we've created an entire economy around fossil fuels, and those that have a lot of power in this economy don't want us to switch to renewable energy because they want to continue making more and more money, right? And then the alien's like, what's an economy? And the guy's like, well, it's just how our humans, how we organize ourselves on this planet. Some people grow food, and then for growing this food, they get some money, and then they trade it for some money. Then they take this money and they trade it for something else, like a place to live or some clothes or something else. Somebody else makes the clothes and gets some money for that. Somebody else does something else and gets money, then they trade it for other things. So basically the entire economy is based on trades.
And some people will argue that the story that you said here, some people will say it's a nice story. Like, what's the problem? It's a nice story. Some people produce, some people take. If they wouldn't produce, they wouldn't have apples or whatever.
Well, like I said, yeah. So, I mean, the problem there is that this kind of trade-based economy that forces people to trade for the items that we already have on this planet, that causes an imbalance of power that allows some people, very few individuals, to have a lot of power. And again, those same few individuals are also in charge of these kind of huge industries like oil and gas, coal.
But
and
Sasha,
what they want is to get more and more money. So
but
they want to
Sasha,
grow that industry.
I've read the news now. Let's see what you think about that. I've read the news now that the richest man on earth, Jeff, Mr. Bezos, he invested 10 billion in combating climate change. I just read that.
How did he do that?
Well, I've read that he really invested 10 billion. So you see, he cares.
yeah, he cares.
I think Mr. Bezos, I think he did a little more damage than $10 billion can account for doing Trom-Cast.
yeah.
He cares. He's just like God. He kills little for cancer, but he loves you. If you don't pray, he send you to hell, but he still loves you.
Thank you, Mr. Bezos.
So we should all regard him as a wonderful man.
I've already read that news. I think I think it was about climate change or something. I think so. Yeah, like he invested like he put 10 billions there to combat, and I'm like, isn't he like fucking enslaving people all around the world with his
Don't worry about it. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
But that's the thing, because these kind of people, even if they invest into solving climate change, really what they're doing is investing into renewable energy, which is a growing industry, and
probably also avoiding taxes by doing such things.
yeah.
Or
I mean, if you
Oh,
really
yeah,
cared,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
you can invest a lot more into a lot of things. And
yeah.
Jeff Bezos, our new Lord and Savior.
Oh, thank you, Lord Bezos. I love you so much, and
Yeah,
thanks for my
really.
wonderful Amazon packages.
Yeah. He delivers our food, our condoms, our electronics, and everything else.
Holy Lord Bezos.
Yeah. There's like a dependence.
There
Like
is-
if you
I mean, if that's what I'm running through my head is like, yeah, I don't want to support the machine, but the infrastructure says that Amazon will bring me my hot chocolate for the cheapest price and drop it on my door the same day. Okay, like why the fuck would I go out and pay more for that? What the hell?
But that's the thing, so some people might say like, oh, well, so what if this guy has, a lot of money? He's trying to do a lot of good. He's investing into renewable energy, and what's the problem?
Who are these people? Like their
What,
family?
what do you say, Tio? What's the problem?
Are their family?
Yeah.
The problem, I would ask them, are you his son or some shit? But the problem is that Bezos has so much fortune, more than countries probably. There are some countries that don't have as much. So he can control, he can bend laws, he can abuse and not get punished. He can just twist the world basically, globally, the way that he wants to. He has so much power, and no one in this world should have so much power. Not even a small group of people, because it's very dangerous. You have examples all over the world that this is happening, and he promotes a culture of consumerism. That's all he does. Like if aliens will ask, "Who's the richest man? Or who does the best in your game?" Well, Jeff Bezos. He's bald, but he still does the best. And they're like, "What is he doing?" I'm like, he sells shit. He's like, people want shit, and he gives shit to people.
Like, what kind of shit?
Just condoms and shit.
Well, that's good, no?
That's good. That's good, but he doesn't do anything but that. We just consume shit, and that consumerism that pushes us into mindless human beings who don't care about anything, and we fuck ourselves up, and then people die daily, and people suffer daily, and it's bad daily, and we have to enslave ourselves daily to survive on this planet daily. So that's not good. It's not fucking good. It's very bad. Yeah. And if we don't have anything else to add, then we will go to some news. But Sasha has the last word because it's her
Sasha.
tactical.
Yo.
Sasha.
We're fucked, probably.
Oh, wow.
I mean, my last word, I guess, is I would just love more people to think about this problem
In a different way.
in a different way, yeah. Not in this ambulance kind of way, but actually analyze what causes humans to behave like this, what causes these problems. Can there be another way? Do we have to organize ourselves through this kind of system? And how could we solve this problem otherwise?
We have many ambulances. Let's create some
Mhm.
healthcare system, some research around, some hospital.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
But I also think it's a good point, like that Tio made, that okay, maybe even we would solve it. Like I said, maybe there's a small possibility that through technology we could possibly, control the world's climate before hitting the tipping points, before completely fucking ourselves over.
Bernie Sanders.
Sanders.
Yeah, but then there will still be in a ridiculous amount of other problems, microplastics, pollution, waste, so many other problems. So in the end, solving climate change is not enough, you know?
Yeah, yeah. We might not get hot on this planet, but we will get fucked.
Yeah.
Maybe not by dinosaur farts,
Yeah.
but probably.
We will
Probably.
transform into plastic. It will be the plastic planet.
I accept my fate.
Yeah.
News.
Cody, last words.
I mean,
Last word is like save me.
it really is. Yeah, there needs to be the global a shift in human behavior that maybe we value human life a little more than we're showing currently. We could prioritize a little more, I think, strategically. And I think hopefully that can come in the time before we start turning everyone into baked potatoes.
Save those Canadian polar bears.
I'm trying, man. I'm doing what I can. You know, we got one staying with me right now, but I mean, it's not sustainable, Tio. He needs his ice back.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
might be
yo.
nice in Canada. It's nice now. It's warm.
Oh
No.
yeah. Well, don't worry about it. The pine beetle's doing just fine up here.
Okay, we can go towards the.
Christian, want to say anything else?
I think he said that he won't say anything because he just
Oh,
listened.
yeah.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
good.
you ruined my like
Sorry.
ambition
Oh wow.
Go.
again.
Do it again.
Which will shorten Tio's life expectancy, which is supposed to be rising in the near future.
Trom news from the future. Okay,
Future.
well,
Future
from
news.
the past, but about the future. Okay, let's go to some Trom news that we get from our cool curated news. Because we have many tools. We create news and videos and documentaries and so forth. Tromsite.com/tools. Okay, which one is the first one?
Life expectancy could rise significantly in the near future. Or
So we
sodium.
can see the effects of climate change.
Ugh.
Yeah, this is an interesting article to showcase from a scientific perspective what advancements are actually into the pipeline, you know. So that's in regards to like extending lifespan, and they give concrete examples. Of course, it's almost nothing today compared how it will be, but it's a new science. So I love to see the progress. That's cool. How they are trying to understand even more what aging is, doing all kinds of experiments, you know, increasing the lifespan, mostly in rats, but there are some human clinical trials, which is very exciting to see how that goes. So yeah, I like that. It's quite detailed and it is nice. I put it there because for those who are interested in this topic, they kind of get a summary for the past years of research in prolonging their healthy lifespan. So that's nice.
Nice.
Yep.
Next one was the death of a Chinese doctor who tried to warn of new coronavirus sparks public outrage.
Do you know?
I read up on this, but how he died. I don't think the article said like how he died.
I think it was from the virus.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and he was like 35 years old.
Yeah, okay.
Like it's not a conspiracy or anything. It's more like
Right.
he wanted to warn about this, and I think China treated him very poorly. Like,
Yeah.
shut the fuck up!
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't make us feel ashamed of our nation, one leader. You know. And the poor guy, you know, died because of the same fucking virus. The same virus, you know. That's like he wanted to warn about. It's just sad, of course. Very sad.
And then like the government tried to blame like the local government, and then the local government is like, well, no, we're actually powerless to do anything without getting the okay from the
Yeah, pass the buck.
yeah government. So yeah, people were a little bit outraged.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it's good for Chinese to be a little bit like, outraged at their government from time to time, not other than obey.
They kind of have lots of reasons. I don't know if they.
Yeah, but it's always the death of one person that's like the most
Right.
emotional reason. So
Outrage for 1 week,
Yeah.
and then let's go back. Yep.
Cataloging cancer genomes, gene-edited immune cells, and NHS finances.
Yeah, this like it's
a digest of a bunch of news stories, science stuff.
Yeah, about the research in cancer treatment, and there are some. They're starting to use more and more this CRISPR technology, which is like basically comes from bacteria. It's a kind of Caesar.
Cut and paste.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can edit the genome very, very exactly, and they use them now for modifying immune cells from your immune system to attack only cancer cells, which is really, really, really interesting. They focus a lot on the immunotherapy, using your own immune system to fight cancer, which is yeah. Yep.
Next one, Elementary OS is building an app center where you can buy open source apps. For
Bad thing. This is the bad news. I don't like that.
Bad.
Because they incentivize people badly. I don't like this in open source. Now, if you don't know, we have this Linux distribution called Trom-Cast. Thanks to Dave, the guy is doing all of the technical stuff behind the scenes. I don't know what the fuck is happening there, because he comes up with solutions all the time, and I feel left behind and ignored sometimes. And I cry.
It's okay to you.
But we have this this operating system called Trom-Cast. We even released a new Trom-Cast version this week or a few days ago, and our focus is, because people ask us, well, what the fuck is so different? There are so many Linux distributions. The focus is that we promote these trade-free applications that don't want anything from the users, because open source is not enough. And here is an example. This Elementary, it's a Elementary OS. It's a new operating system, basically, for the past 2-3 years, I think, or maybe more, but it's quite new on the scenes. And they're trying to with a new model. They think that it's a good model of like, people have open source applications. We make an app store. They can put them there, but they will charge money for them, even though you can find those applications somewhere else. But because it's easy, to find them on this app store, it kind of incentivizes people to maybe make shitty applications for the sake of making them, just to make a buck, or to stop people from accessing open source applications, which I think is really bad incentive. It's a fucking bad incentive, because these people build their own tools on the backs of those volunteers who put them for free or trade free, and now they're trying to sell them. So I think that's a bad idea. I don't like this in open source. I see it more and more. So yeah, I don't like that. Use Trom-Cast if you really want some trade free stuff there. Like, just use stuff, good stuff and free, completely free. So.
Yeah, and it's so great in Trom-Cast. You just look up whatever application you might want and get it for free.
Our own app store.
Yeah, but a free app store.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Trom-Cast.com/apps. All of those apps are trade free, and we check all of them and so forth to make sure they are trade free. You click install from there, it installs on the computer. I use Trom-Cast, Sasha uses Trom-Cast, Cody sometimes uses Trom-Cast, and other people use Trom-Cast. So yeah, don't buy apps, because it's a really
much better than an app store.
Donate to developers if you want, of course, support their work, but don't incentivize them. Like, to sell their work. To like, I will sell my fucking work. That's not good. It's a slippery slope. No bueno, like Cody would say.
I know. The fourth year of LibraPlay.
These are connected. These news, you see, I'm smart. I knew how to put them there.
Ow!
LibraPay is like, that's how you can support people, developers. You go there and donate money to them. We are also on LibraPay, like librapay.org, I think it's, or .com/Trom. You can find that on tromsite.com/donate if you want to donate. It will be great to see people from Patreon moving there to LibraPay, because they don't incentivize with anything for people to like give perks, or how Patreon is nowadays. Like, oh, if you donate to me like 50 euros, I'll send you naked pictures. It's not donation. You buy naked photos, from these people. That's not good. That's
How are you gonna sell your naked photos then too?
Yeah, I don't
what
want
the
to
hell?
sell naked photos. That's the problem.
You want to give them away for free? That's what I'm hearing. Okay.
So LibraPay is great. Like, these people work for free because they're volunteers. Some people support them, but it's not enough. But they are still releasing more and more features. Like, you can donate to have recurring donations. They improved the LibraPay payment options and so forth, which is great. I love what these people are doing. Yeah, great people, and they are kind of the only popular alternative to Patreon. And the people there are also using Linux and so forth. They're in the open source world. It's more for open source projects and so forth. I like to say it's nice. It's really nice.
Our social media is broken. Is decentralization the fix?
What do you think is decentralization the fix?
I think it's a piece. It's a piece to the puzzle, but by itself, I think social media will still be a giant shitstorm.
Why?
Well, for one, we're carrying a lot of baggage from the previous social network, so I mean, just move Facebook somewhere else, kind of thing. But then it's going to depend on how these social media websites are run. If there's some big chieftain who's like, just, these things are okay, these things are not. If we're talking federated, I mean, it seems like federated would be the way to go in, but then bubbles and stuff and other things happen. So, I mean, so a lot of interesting things going to happen with social media. But what is incentivized by the code is I guess, a very fundamental thing that we need to look at. And because right now it's anger. Anger is what you want on social media. So that's what's kind of pushed and encouraged.
Because people
engagement. That's anger is the emotion you want.
That's engagement. It converts into ads, converts into money.
Money. Ooh, okay. Yeah, right.
It's quite good. It's quite interesting in the sense that its Internet Archive gathered the cream of like
cream of the crop.
Yeah, the decentralization of social networks, like all of the guys with the big names that work into this. But I've seen the lectures and this and that. I've read about them. They don't understand quite, like, they bash Facebook, like, oh, Facebook is so bad, we are going to do better because Facebook like incentivizes people to like whatever the fuck, like you said, Cody, clickbait and shit. But they also put some of the social networks that decentralized, they put their own coins and their own incentive motives. They're like, points, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Do the same fucking thing. If you put their incentive to like make more posts and then make your post more popular, so they don't get it, But there are very interesting ideas from a technical perspective. You can make a fully decentralized social network, and their idea here is a very cool idea. I don't know if you ever thought about this, but they think of your data and social network as two different things. Here is my data. Whatever I like on the social network, my comments on everything, my photos are stored here. Social networks only access this data the way that I want to. So in case that I don't like this social network, I take my bags and I put it on this other social network, and I will be the same person, but just on a different URL or a different platform, And that platform has my likes, has my comments, has my photos, and I think it's a much saner way to do it. That's how they are proposing it, and it's working technically. It's very cool. Very, very cool. So nice.
And re-decentralizing the web for good this time.
Yeah, not only social networks,
Right.
but and it's the same idea here. Technically great. There are so many super cool ways to decentralize this entire internet, because what we don't think about much is we think that we have access to a world of everything to the internet. Everyone has equal access. There is a problem here. At first, people thought about operating systems, because how can you access it? You need an operating system. And then you only have Microsoft and Apple, basically, competing. Then it's like, how do you access the internet, really? Well, browsers, right? Because if you don't have a browser, you are fucked. So how many browsers are in the world? Hey kids, can you tell me, Sasha, how many browsers do you know? Hey. How many browsers do you know? Tell me 5 names.
Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer. I don't know.
Chromium.
Chrome is
The Chrome, but
Opera. Safari.
We kind of can say about 5 or so names. The truth is that the infrastructure that they are built upon are just like 2 infrastructures, as far as I understand. Like Firefox based on 1 infrastructure, the rest, and even Internet Explorer, are based on kind of Google's infrastructure. But the problem is that Google browser, the Chrome browser, is like basically the other ones don't exist. So it's so huge, the other ones don't exist. So you don't have choices. You use Chrome, okay? And the last point here, so you see your window narrows down. It's like, I want to access this world. Okay, operating systems too. Browsers, kind of 1, almost 2, sometimes 3, but it's just 1. Okay, it narrows down. And then, what do you think is next, Sasha, for example, to access the internet? What do you think is the next layer?
Websites.
Wrong. How do you know about websites? How do you know about websites? From TV?
I don't know. From other websites. From people.
How do you explore this world of internet, Cody?
How do URLs? Seems.
How do you find out about it?
I look online. Search engine. A search engine.
Search engine. Okay.
Exactly, search engines, because that's what people use.
Right.
So search engine. How many search engines do you know, guys? Google.
One is Google, and one is the one that I use is DuckDuckGo, which uses Google's results. So 1.
Yandex in Russia.
Yeah, Yandex in Russia and Baidu in China.
Yeah.
But they are just because they ban each other, like they can't complete.
Yeah.
No Google here.
But that's right, it's like one search engine basically globally. Let's say there are 3, and that's the problem, because here, like, Google will tell you, we tell most of the people in the world what to read online. When people want to read something online, that's what they're telling them. And now with social networks, that's the 4th layer that we're talking about. With social networks, because people use that, there are statistics like, I'm not surprised, people don't know the difference between Facebook and internet. They just use Facebook. They say, oh, that's the internet. In some regards, it's not far away from when people use just Google for the internet, but they don't realize it, because that's what they use, right? You use Google to search for shit, but you don't understand that you look through Google into the world. So you see,
and Google looks at you.
What?
And Google looks at you.
Oh.
Into you.
Basically. That's what it is. So yeah, that's the article dealing with like how to decentralize this internet that has become so centralized. Like just a few companies tell billions of people what to read, when to read, what's important, what's not important. It's a really big fucking problem. People are trying to fight it like they fight climate change with technical solutions, but it's not a technical problem. You see, it's an incentive problem. So I don't know. I like what they're doing, but I don't think it's much. But well, and the guy who invented basically the internet, Tim Berners-Lee, something like Lee Burning Tim, whatever. He's like reinventing now the internet in this like decentralized way with new technologies. I'm not sure he's going to succeed much, but I will keep an eye on that. I would love to use it and these tools, but unfortunately, most people won't. So sorry that took so much of the time. I don't want to put you guys to sleep.
That's good.
NASA prepares the nation for flying taxis.
Or how Americans are calling them free ambulances.
Oh. Yeah.
Quite a deceiving title though, but it's about NASA investing into this making courses for, Jack was talking about VTOL, vertical
takeoff and landing vehicles. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're becoming more and more popular, but this is a funny one because Uber Uber has this fucking ad of like they imagine the future. Uber Air, or Uber Lyft, whatever the fuck they're Uber Air. And they animate this shit. It's like, oh, look at some people want to take Uber now. It's in the sky too, and they take off. Fuck off, what the fuck?
That's traffic.
That's how they solve traffic. That's how they solve traffic, because they don't understand what the problem is. They're like, oh, we solve traffic. No, motherfuckers. You want to make some profits, it's different, right? So they want to put taxis in the air because we don't have enough cars on on the road.
Not enough space for cars anymore. Now we need to put them in the air.
I like how you think you're an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Where
is there space for cars in the air?
You're hired.
You are hired. You are smart and woman. I think you have a
Oh, very nice. Why DNA tests are suddenly unpopular?
Why, Cody? Why, Sasha?
Is the government spying on me?
No way! Oh my god, I knew it.
Why?
Because they're useless.
Hey! Confetti in the air.
Useless! Yeah.
You remember when it was quite popular? Probably it reached everyone. Like, oh, DNA test now, just $100, and you know if your dog is yours.
Oh my god! Tell me more.
No, if you're his real child.
Oh my wow!
Dad's like, don't do the DNA test.
Yeah.
But I want to know the truth.
They are booming, like in 2018. Like lots of them, even science channels on YouTube like are advertising 23andMe.
Do it.
Get your now.
Do
You
it.
spit on them and they will tell you your future.
You're bad.
And then, but guess what? People kind of realize that they're kind of useless. Like, okay, they tell me that I'm coming from Africa. Oh my god, I'm from Ireland. I have a thick accent and I'm very pale colored. And they're like, I think you're from like the north. Oh no, fucking shit.
Wow.
And it's funny that now, because they don't have clientele, they don't have clients, basically, because people who wanted to do the test already did them. They came out with new kind of packages telling you where to travel based on what foods you will taste better, based on your DNA. What the fuck?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DNA terrorism?
Yeah, DNA.
Yeah. DNA food tourism.
Yeah, right. Okay.
What wine goes with what food for your DNA? I
Very
mean,
nice.
shut the fuck up,
You got that spicy DNA, Tio. What are you talking about?
Spicy pack.
It's like if you're white, you should probably stay up north.
Yeah, right. Just
Don't go to that hot climate. You'll get a sunburn.
right.
Yeah, so they are useless, basically. They're trying to reinvent them now. They will try, but you know, whatever are pointed. Because I was thinking, like, if they will do this for real, not as a company, let's use the DNA to see how to get information from people. If someone will do that as an organization, they will not give a fuck about coming up with such packages, of course, because they don't want to sell anything. They will focus on what is relevant from the DNA test. They will not sell those fucking ridiculous things. But because of the society, their companies are forced to come up with such nonsense things. So, the world, right?
Wait, do those DNA tests tell you if you're like prone to cancer or like have certain cancer genes or something
Oh,
like that?
but Noel, here's the thing. They cannot quite tell you such things because they get sued. So they're not quite allowed to do that because they cannot prove that fucking thing. So they go towards this domain of like informative whatever shit they're labeling it with, like just informative
Yeah,
bullshit.
right. Yeah.
You
You're a human.
Disclaimer. Yeah.
In case you didn't know, pay me $100. I'll tell you you're a human.
Yeah, you might be alive. We discovered that.
Oh, okay. Wow. I disagree.
And we agree with you. Yeah, so it's a big nothingness. But, well, the real progress won't come from such companies. Some people may argue that, oh my God, 23andMe provides DNA tests for $100. And they are useless, motherfucker. It's not like they are inventing something here. Yeah. Progress will come from different kinds of, like, probably grants given to all kinds of organizations that will, all kinds of discoveries, like clinical trials, serious stuff, not direct to consumer products. No.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
All right. A radio signal is coming from space every 16 days, Tio. What the hell is it?
23andMe.
Maybe back our ancestry DNA. All right. I knew it.
If you want to find out, just do the test.
Sounds pretty good. I did not know about this.
It's aliens, Cody.
What? You mean it? Oh, wow. When do I get to shake their appendages?
But it's an interesting kind of, like, they discover this kind of phenomenons in the universe that we don't know what the fuck they are. This one is quite strange because it's not that regular. It comes from many different places, and they theorize that it could be aliens. Some people, some scientists, I don't know. I don't think they're scientists. They speculate.
But they speculated. They didn't.
Yeah, but then other scientists are like,
and then,
what? Let's see if there are aliens, what kind of thing would produce that signal? And they realize that you need a source of energy as big as planet Earth, or twice the size of planet Earth, that produces energy, like almost like a sun. So if aliens have that kind of technology, it will be quite unrealistic, especially because the signal comes from different kinds of parts of the universe. Like, to be have multiple species developing the same kind of, like, mind-blowing technology, communicating with each other, it's like, it makes little to no sense,
Unless we just don't know about how they communicate.
But that's the thing, is
It's like a telephone, for aliens in different galaxies.
Maybe trying.
Planet. Yeah.
Maybe the aliens are trying to find trade partners.
I think you're onto something.
Maybe they are selling energy to us and they can beam it to us. It's like if you pay a subscription,
Yeah, right. It's an advertisement. In space.
But I like the difference between, how you would go about, finding out. Scientists wouldn't go like, oh, it's aliens. It might be aliens. Oh, it's aliens. Let's prove that it's
Definitely
aliens.
aliens.
They're like,
aliens.
okay, let's see. Maybe if there's a chance that there's aliens, let's see how it could possibly work and what are other things it could be. And let's think about all possibilities. Not like most regular humans are like, oh, aliens. And I'm set on that idea.
Aliens, mystery. Ooh, but
Mhm.
probably not. But it would be
Yes.
cool if we ever discover these kinds of things that if it's aliens, as far as my understanding goes, if it's something really bizarre, it should only come from one place and you should part of the universe and you shouldn't find it anywhere else. Because they discovered in the past these kinds of signals, but they come from many different directions, so it's very likely it's a phenomenon in the universe that kind of repeats. If it only comes from one direction, it's like that. Okay, that's weird. Only happens here. Only happens here.
Mm.
So I'm waiting for that.
Mhm.
That's good.
Right. Background story of app image.
App images quickly is like it's a way of creating applications for Linux. You basically bundle everything you need into one file, double click the file, and you have the application, which is super, super cool. It's not a new kind of technology, but what was interesting about this interview here, the guy who created it, is that I didn't know it but it doesn't surprise me. It's like the guy makes it just in his spare time. He doesn't make any money. He's like, I don't want any fucking money. I just want for you guys to use my thing, and that's it. And there are big companies like Canonical from Ubuntu or from inventors of Flatpak from Red Hat, like IBM or so forth, who make this kind of packages that probably are worse built than this guy makes them for free in his spare time. He did a really great job, and maybe we'll start to use them in the future for Trom-Jaro. But yeah, they don't update that automatically and so forth. But it's a cool interview because of how this guy is saying, like, oh, I just work in my spare time. Whenever I have time in the train or whatever, I just work on this thing, and people can use it. I don't want any money. So you see, you can do things for free again and great things for that matter. Whew. I have two more, I think.
What? I don't have those. That was the last. That was the last one in the show notes. I'm telling you.
Who are you?
You go back and double check me, my dude. I clicked all those links, man. I clicked them all.
We have one. One was about the coronavirus. If it's a deadly pandemic, do you think it is, Scotty?
I have not kept up with like the media or the shenanigans around it, but to me, I was already not all frazzled up about the whole. I didn't get aboard the coronavirus hype train. How's that? I think it will. I think it is not the huge, deadly, massive, catastrophic failure of everything. I think the flu is very much killing more people than this one is right now, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
So
around 2,000 people worldwide died from coronavirus, and from influenza, the common flu, it's like 250,000 or something more than that.
whoops.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. So to me, it's just like
Yeah.
almost not even on the radar. Just like something to talk about. Ooh, shiny.
I mean, it's
And
a
it's
problem.
mostly people over 80, right?
Right.
Yeah, opportunity, that's what they did. But it explains this. I've read this article from Vox. It explains very well how they measure the deadliness of a virus, because there are kind of two things. One is like the rate of infection. So almost like imagining 10 people in a room, one is infected, sneezes in the room. How many people get infected from a sneeze? Kind of like that, to put it broadly, And for example, Zika, I think, has like 6 people who get infected or something. Normal flu is like 1.4 people, and this one is like 2 to 3 people. So the infection rate is worse than is quicker than the normal flu. But the other thing that they analyze is the deadliness of it. How many people die out of those infected, and this one is like quite in the low, like it's worse than other viruses normally, but not that bad. It's like 1 or 2%. I don't know, something like that, of cases they die. And such things, if you look at statistics, that's the cool thing about this, because you will see that people over 80 are those who basically die, or over 60,
Right.
most of them die because they also have other problems, like respiratory problems, so forth. So it's good to know, to be informed about this, because people get too freaked out, because of the media, the hype.
Facebook.
It's coming.
When we
Yeah.
came,
It's still good. It's still good to take preventative measures,
Sure, yeah.
especially if you're in China, in Asia.
but when we came back from Romania to Spain. It's like a few people there in the airport with like masks. I'm like, what the fuck are you? Like, where the fuck are you coming from? Or like, you're in Romania. Like, nothing goes in Romania. Like, in Romania, nothing is embarrassing.
There are no Chinese people here.
Yeah, no.
It's too cheap in Romania. It's like we cannot make a business. But those people that they wear those masks, but then they take them off when you are in the plane. Like, dude, that's where is the closest barrier. That's not how it works. You either wear it or no.
And they're like touching all kinds of things and then touching the mask. Like,
And these people buy those masks in mass. They don't need them, and then those people who need them, because Sasha and also Dima got contacted, even they, by some of their friends from
Hong
South
Kong.
Hong Kong, because they couldn't, like, hey Sasha, can you buy us from some masks, but this kind of masks from Europe, because we cannot find them anymore and they could not buy them online. Of course, because Romanians are buying them because they think that they read Facebook news and they think that fucking they have to wear them when they go for a coffee or something. Misinformation can have this kind of effects. No bueno.
Whereas it's very unlikely that you'll get that virus in Europe. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's
Just one person died in France. She was over 80, coming from exactly that down in China with the infection was.
Ground zero.
It was similar with Ebola.
Oh.
Ebola was quite deadly, but the infection rate was not that
Yeah, it was really
bad. Of
small.
course, it was quite isolated, and they knew about it, but it was because of that poor area. They didn't have a healthcare system and so forth, so they got fucked pretty badly.
In West Africa.
And we had one more news called like out of context photos are powerful low-tech form of misinformation. And I want to make this point of like they studied this, and of course it's nothing new under the sun. It's like showcasing how some photos. It was one photo taken after people had to leave because of what kind of hurricane in US. And they left behind all kinds of trash, because I think they had these kind of tents there that they kind of had to like flee from the storm, and they had to flee from that place that they were stayed. So you will see some messed up place basically, and the caption was, "Oh, look what this socialist or whatever the fuck people are doing when they go to protest," or something. I don't know, something like that. Or it was actually a photo of a supermarket where there are very few products, because people took the products, or it was a hurricane or something in the US or some shit. And it was captioned like, "Look what socialism will bring to you. Do you want this kind of?" Yeah.
Wow.
When we don't have this, and people buy into this shit because people just go on Facebook or Instagram and they see some captions and some photos, and it's very easy to influence them. That's the point of the article. Even with low tech stuff, people worry about deep fake or other stuff like that, but even low.
Just straight up picture with words is.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this they recommend that one way to check these things is like it's a plugin, an extension for your browser that you can right click an image and search by image, and it'll show you where that image was first posted online. So you kind of can figure out if this photo is legit. And just so I mentioned, this is installed by default from Java or Firefox. We took care of this kind of thing to have these kinds of tools. And I talked so much this Trom-Cast that I think I go for a nap or something.
Yeah.
I need to eat something. I need a holiday.
Yeah, well, it's been like 2.5 hours now, so
Yeah, this was
quite a lot.
the epic Trom-Cast.
We are in this. But that's good.
It was good.
He was good.
So, good talk.
Good chato.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anyone wants to add anything, if not,
Yeah, and you can find that blog we were talking about that I wrote on my website. It's bigworldsmallsasha.com/blog.
small. She's really small. I was telling people. You are
Yeah.
really small.
Usually when people meet me in real life, they're like, "Oh, you really are small."
Wow, you weren't lying.
It's not a. I want to say it's not a clickbait or anything. It's just it's huge.
You see the chair? Like we have the same chair, me and Tio. Aaron bought this chair. He was much bigger. You couldn't even see that they had the same chair. But now Aaron left, and I have the chair. I have like this much more chair.
Some pillows, you know.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, bigworldsmallsasha.com. She has a bunch of very interesting blogs. And Jen, who also wrote for Trom in the past, Trom books, she also wanted to write a book about climate change. She started it, but she couldn't continue it because I don't know, she had to, she was busy. And maybe now with Sasha's article and whatever she wrote, Jen wrote, maybe she wanted to create a Trom book about climate change, and we will struggle to design it in a really interesting way and so forth. So maybe a Trom book about climate change will come. But,
And if Jen can't do it eventually, I will make a book out of it, I'm sure, after I finish my stuff.
yeah, we work on stuff like usual. Tromside.com/live. I feel like I'm one of those guys who like have this shitty podcast that like, if you want to buy now, just go like my name.
/ merch store / right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have nothing to sell, unfortunately.
Nothing to sell.
There's like a video about how you can make your own like handprint T-shirt.
Not selling that.
Wow.
Make your own.
Fine.
I'll post their update stuff. This week I'll focus a bit on Trom and then something personal on my blog to post a blog post. Maybe next week we'll talk about prison art. Like the topic will be like how we are prisoners. You see a positive cast, like I'm saying.
Yeah, that's well. Push it off. Push it off.
We can't do it that positive. Like I don't know what to do. We'll try.
Not enough positive things in this world.
Focus.
We had the one positive cast, okay?
Yeah, maybe make one again. Second attempt to make a positive.
Not next week. Prison Earth.
Yeah,
No.
prison.
Positive cast.
Wow.
That's how I feed myself with negativity. But I'm still positive. I'm a positive person. You know, I make jokes and I laugh. I'm very positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made a blog called Prison Earth a few weeks ago, and then Tio is working on one now. We're happy prisoners.
Very, very satisfied. 10 out of 10 prison.
Yeah. Because I have to like tell you a few things about what we've been through for the past months or so. It's crazy. It's like I will show like photos and videos, and it's the fucked up. I know it's fucked up, but people may not know that part of the factory. But I'll show some stuff. I should have made a book about it, but I don't have time because I want to make a documentary. You know, so I want to finish with these things to focus on the documentary. So yeah, we'll see. Updates will come. Will come. Okay.
Okay, guys.
Okay, guys. Noel, thank you for participating, man. Maybe you can participate more. We need more people to Trom-Cast, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Keep on doing
Thank you.
Okay,
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
Okay, guys.
Turn the
Peace.
lights off.
All right. See you all. Bum, killing the cat.